and I thought that was the end of my life.
At what age was that?
I was 24 years old. It also led me into staying into a relationship longer than what I should have. Who will ever want me? I was slowly dying from the inside out, putting on a happy face in front of people. Don't believe what people tell you. I don't hear words, I see actions.
Welcome back to In Her Steps. Today's guest is Karen Kaz Thierry, a mother, entrepreneur, and COO who has spent over 20 years helping businesses grow while navigating some of life's toughest challenges. From being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at a young age to becoming a single mum and rebuilding her life, Kaz's journey is one of resilience, self-discovery, and finding love again when she least expected it. In this episode, we talk about motherhood, relationships, second chances, and what it really takes to create a life you love. Let's dive in.
How are you, Kaz? So great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, when we met, I was blown away at your energy, your youthfulness, and when I started to hear a little bit about your backstory as a single mom and then finding love again, I really wanted to bring you on the show because often as single moms, I've been there, you kind of lose hope. You don't know what's the future. Sometimes you're still holding on to your past relationship or your current relationship, and you don't dare to kind of leave the good to go for the great. And that's why me and Jennifer, we wanted to have this kind of channel to share different stories, not just me and Jen's story, but your story as well, so that people maybe can resonate somewhere and then feel like they've got some hope. So, Kaz, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, yourself. What do you currently do? If they say, who is Kaz? How would you describe yourself?
Oh, okay. So Kaz is an entrepreneur. I am a founder of Go Infinite, which is an outsourcing company like, the one that you've got. We provide a lot of different services. So I identify myself as a career woman, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter. I went through a period of my life where I was really unwell, and having to learn how to identify yourself as something other than a career woman was really quite challenging. So I know I did put that first because we met in a business setting to start with, but primarily I identify myself as a mother, a good friend, and somebody who can be trusted.
Love it. Yeah. I think often if we get too stuck on our one identity, we can we lose ourselves when we don't have that anymore. And so where along the way did you kind of realize, okay, I'm not just about my career, I am more than that?
I think that came about when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I thought that was the end of my life.
At what age was that?
I was 24 years old, so I had taken some time off to travel. So I was working in my career. I entered in the sales and marketing arena, started off with an amazing company called Galderma, had an incredible manager who was a female, and she taught me how to be a businesswoman, and a businesswoman that didn't need to be masculine, that needed to be able to get their message across. So she taught me grace, and she taught me how to be a really strong person in the business world without losing my identity as being feminine.
So how did your health affect your approach to life?
When I was diagnosed, because I'd been travelling, I didn't really have to worry about work at that point in time, but I did worry about what future that would hold for me. Would I be able to have a family? Would I be able to have a career? Would I be able to do the things that I loved? I was doing triathlon at the time, and I remember the neurologist said to me, well, you don't really want to overheat your core, so maybe think about other exercises other than running.
Triathlon,
running. And also the mental, physical and emotional stress was a trigger for that condition, and if one of those were triggered too often, it could progress the disease. So back then when I was diagnosed, it was very hard to know what the prognosis was going to be. So it was pretty scary, but got through it, through ups and downs.
And how did you approach that? most of us, we're never really ready to hear bad news such as this serious health issues. And then how did you overcome it?
I didn't really take it seriously when I was first told that I was diagnosed with MS, because I was overseas for potentially a year in Canada when I got diagnosed. And I was like, oh, it's like a cold, whatever, it's just MS. And my auntie was a CNC of neurology at Liverpool Hospital, and she said, oh, sweetie, you really don't have a clue, do you? Get on the next plane and get home. So that was the beginning of learning how to manage my abilities as opposed to the disability. And over the years, we had ups and downs, and, you know, some pretty amazing medical interventions that have me to where I am today.
Yeah. So what were some of the limitations early on?
Early on, there was a lot of sleeping. I had double vision, foot drop on my right foot, concerns about, you know, relationships, life, love.
Like you might not be able to find someone with...
I was with somebody who was very supportive at the time, which was great, and wasn't going to leave me because I was sick. So that was something that I was very grateful for. But it also led me into staying into a relationship longer than what I should have because of that compassion that was shown to me. And
so you feel like you kind of owe it to them?
Yeah, kind of. Yes, in one sense you think you kind of owe it to them to be in a bad relationship, but then on the other hand you think, well, who will ever want me? So, and I think a lot of people feel like that when they've been in long-term relationships and it doesn't work out for one reason or another, whether they have children, whether they have an illness, or maybe just low self-esteem. When a relationship ends, you're in a puddle on the floor thinking, who would ever want me?
That is so interesting. Me and Jennifer literally were talking about that in one of our episodes. You know, like even we get told by our own parents, our own mum, it's like, now that you're a single mum, who's going to want you now, you know? So how did you then change your mindset into someone that was worthy of love or worthy of a great career?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my background might be a little bit different from some of your listeners, but my mother brought myself and my brother up as a single parent. And it wasn't until, you know, maybe in our primary school years that she repartnered. So I saw how hard she worked and how she dedicated herself to us. So I knew that in this day and age, being a single parent is really possible. And coming to that decision was very difficult because I grew up wanting a family my entire life.
Yes, you want what you can't have.
Exactly. And so it leads you to do things that you wouldn't normally do in order to maintain a relationship that's not right for you. And when I finally made the decision, I remember being on the phone to my dad saying, hey, what happened with your mum when you two broke up? And that really helped me make a decision, knowing that I wasn't being treated the way that I needed to be treated in order for my soul to be happy, because I was slowly dying from the inside out, putting on a happy face in front of people. A lot of people were really shocked that we separated because people don't see what happens behind closed doors.
That's right. And how long was that relationship, and what would you say, like, was the journey to overcoming that? Like, what did you have to go through to get over such a big relationship?
Yeah, so the relationship was 13 years, you know, illness, travel, ups and downs, mostly fabulous.
And a child involved
memories
in this
and
too?
moments, yeah. And a child, an unexpected pregnancy, which, you know, I always wanted a family. Originally, when I first started dating, it was, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids, because, you know, you see the bad examples around you, but really deep down inside, I did want to have a family. And I did want to have, you know, I wanted to have 3 children. I have a beautiful daughter now, and I've inherited some stepchildren, which I absolutely adore. And throughout that relationship, it was a bit of a roller coaster, but mostly great. And there came a time where we relocated, and I had my beautiful daughter, and my health failed me. And so it put extra pressure on the relationship. And the cracks within the relationship started to reveal themselves. And then some other issues that crept into the relationship that couldn't be resolved. And it would have been about 3.5 years, maybe 2 of those really unhappy. And I thought, what kind of example am I setting for my daughter if these aren't resolved, because, kids model behaviours. And it's one thing to treat your child really well, but it's another thing to have a good, strong, respectable and respectful relationship with your partner.
Yeah, that is so true, because often even couples try to stay together for the sake of their kids, but then they could be in a relationship where it's almost like just housemates. There's no affection, no love, and I always wonder, like, you're showing your kids this is what a marriage is, when it's not really that. Like, how free did you feel when you actually left? Like, I know it's really hard, and but that sense of relief every time I've broken up or left something, as scared as you was to do it, but when you did, there's a sense of like you can breathe again.
That is a really great way to describe how leaving a bad relationship feels, and even some relationships. So with relationships without children in the past, I felt emancipated, that, freedom and the possibility of what's next. In the stage that I was at my lowest point in my life, the most vulnerable, the sickest I've ever been, and a single parent with a young child. And for me, I was a puddle on the floor. I couldn't say at that point in time that I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I felt sad, and I felt like in the back of my mind, I hoped that there was a way back to reconciliation. Because
it felt like it's easier that way.
Well, it became so toxic, the relationship. It was very hard for us to even have a conversation. Even our child was saying, Mummy and Daddy, stop talking, because, all we did was fight. And when you're and tried counselling, but it was failing. Everything I tried, I was failing. I was trying my best to hold the relationship together because I wanted a family. So in the end, I thought it was best that we had some time apart, in the hopes that we would find our way back to each other. But that was not going to be the case.
Yeah. And, what did you do in that time? Like, how did you make sure you feel positive? Obviously, you're in your darkest times, you're feeling crap. What did you do to ensure each day, you're happier?
I did the most toxic thing you could possibly do. It was not a good thing, but it was only what I knew at that point in time. So initially, obviously, you're crying, you're upset. The good thing I did is I went home to my mum, and that was good. But it was also, in the background, you hear rumours, and then I started getting emails because we shared an email account, and I noticed that my former partner had moved on. There was no intention to be able to rekindle or be able to repair that relationship. So after that broke me, I've gone, okay, well, I've got to move on too now. So thank you for showing me who you really are. And to this day, I've kept that to myself, and now everyone knows. But knowing that actually gave me permission to go out and start living my own life. So I rallied around my friends, and the friends that I wanted to have marriages like. And for me, I was very lucky to have friends. I hear a lot of single ladies, when they become single, their friends dump them because maybe, I don't know if there's something going on in their relationships, but I've had a lot of friends say to me, a lot of couples that they used to be friends with are no longer friendly for some reason or other. I was very lucky. I chose a very small, select group of people who I could really trust, and some people whose marriages that I admired as well, because growing up in a broken family, I didn't know my core values, and that also contributed to the breakdown in my relationship. So after lots of counselling, I established what my core values are, and anybody that was going to come into that circle of mine would actually have to align with those core values for me to be truly happy.
I love that you got professional help. Like, what made you decide, okay, you know what, I want to do some work? And obviously, as you're doing the work, you realize that there's stuff that you contributed to it because you didn't know who you are and what you wanted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess over the years I had done some work on myself previously, and then, wanting this relationship to work, I ended up doing some marriage counselling, and I wanted counselling that was actually focusing on moving forward, not on the past. I didn't want the tit for tat. I wanted tools to work together so we could actually repair the relationship, but also have positive communication even when we weren't agreeing on something, because we were two very different people when it came to having a family. Being single and together is very different from having a family and coming together. So with the counselling, I decided to continue on after the relationship had broken down, because I needed the support, because not only was my health really bad, my mental state wasn't so great. I also identified that I didn't really know how to model a positive family, and how was I going to attract something into my life if I didn't know really who I was, because I had to re-identify myself, because I couldn't go back to work full time, so I could no longer be a career woman. I was working part-time, I was a single parent, and I was really struggling with my health. I was in agony daily, couldn't sleep, dragging myself out of bed. My disease was progressing to the point where none of the medication was working. So I was lost, and I needed that support.
Yeah, I totally agree. I only came across, I used a life coach because I studied life coaching. And when I learned, I'm like, oh my God, I need a life coach. My life wasn't good. And then, and that was kind of my journey into personal development and realizing you don't know what you don't know. And there's just so much more to discover. So yeah, I love that you didn't just go, I know what to do, I'm going to seek professional help in that sense. So then what was the turning point, I guess, from getting help? If you look back, where did you see, all of a sudden there's light?
I remember, being at my lowest and seeing my brother who passed away, a photo of him with his thumbs up, and I've gone, oh, well, I knew he never really liked him anyway. So that's a sign from God saying that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You got to feel the highs and the lows of life. That's what we're here for, and I knew I was going to be fine in that moment.
How old were you by this time?
About 35, I think I was. Yeah.
At that time, did you feel like, oh my God, I'm getting old? Because, we always have this perspective of age. Like, I remember just before 30, I'm like, I better get married before 30, because 30 just feels old.
And the biological clock is ticking at 30. There's something, as soon as you turn 30, it's like your ovaries are crying for a family.
Well, I had a kid when I was 20, so that wasn't work. But just almost like, you almost give yourself these benchmark goals, right? Like what society tells you, and so you feel like you're in a rush. But I was just curious, at 35, did you feel like, oh my God, I have to start again? And did
Absolutely.
It feel old? Yeah.
And I think it's just such a natural thing. I mean, my mum even did the same thing when she was 55, and she's repartnered now. She repartnered at 60.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was around about then. So there's always hope for love as well. I think that is the biggest thing that people take away. I think the turning point for me when I realised that I am going to get the man that I deserve was when I was 40, and my mum came to me and said, I didn't have to pay for a wedding, so it's all right, honey. I'm going to pay for your 40th birthday party. And that felt like a knife to the heart. Oh my gosh, it was... I was so, I guess, grateful that she would want to do something really nice for me and kind, and it was genuine care from her to do that. But it was also like, is that it for me? So I said, you know what? Pay for my birthday party. Thank you, Mum, but I am still getting married. So I told all my friends my 40th birthday was coming up. And I said, I'm getting married when I turn 40.
Oh my God. I love how you're just like calling it out and confident.
And they said to me, I didn't know you had a boyfriend. And I didn't.
But there was a conviction, like you felt it.
Absolutely. And I wrote down a list of what I wanted. I was never one of those people who had a list. All my friends had lists. I didn't. That was probably where I went wrong. But I had this list of the person that I wanted in my life. And I started internet dating. It's very, and I know you met my now husband, Pierre, who's the absolute love of my life. And I don't think the manifestation took that long, but I don't know if you believe in manifestation or, God answering your prayers or whatever. But my 40th birthday was on the 3rd of March. And we had our first date on the 5th of April.
Wow, a month later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I keep saying to him that I manifested him.
Yes. Totally. We are so similar because in that year that I finally had a breakdown of, a relationship, I realized I was the problem. And then I discovered Tony Robbins, and then I did my list. I wrote down clear. It was the first time I actually knew what I wanted or even dared to ask. And then I used to write goals as if it's already happened. Like, oh my God, I met my boyfriend and she's so sweet. It was like, you're almost living in the future.
Yes.
And then it pretty much happened really fast. He just found me on YouTube and then we just met. So I did say the same thing, like I manifested you. But this reminds me of like why the difference with us is that we still love. We weren't afraid even though we were hurt. And relationship is complicated. Like, what made you go, but I love love and I want love, versus some women tend to believe, like, you know what, I don't need love. Like, I'm completely fine on my own.
I think life is better when you share it with somebody. And I really genuinely wanted to share my life with the person that I loved. And I'm always believed in love. And I think there may also be another thing. I've been told that people with multiple sclerosis do suffer from euphoria. And I don't know if that's for everyone, but I do find that that's somewhat true with me. But I've also been that type of personality that's always been the optimist as well. And so for the people who are more pessimistic, I can understand how they sit there and go, oh, well, what's the point? Or, my husband passed away. I'm never going to find love again. That's my one true love. And they focus their energy somewhere else. I think it's going to be different for everybody, but if you truly look inside your heart and ask yourself if you want love, if you're worthy of love and you want to be loved and want to share your life with somebody, just be brave. There's nothing worse than looking back on life and thinking, what if?
Yeah.
And rejection is part of being loved. One of my friends said to me, you've got to break hearts to open one. So your heart might be broken, somebody else's heart might be broken, but it serves as a purpose on getting us to where we need to be.
Right. There is no reward without risk.
Absolutely.
Right? Because often we have to be careful at, are we actually clearly don't want it, or is there some sort of fear, that protection that like, if I don't go for it, then I won't get hurt. But one thing I realized about relationship is it's the only way to actually learn about yourself. Because if you live on your own, there's really no one to battle with you, no one to really challenge you.
Unless you've got kids.
Yes, you can. But I think having a partner, like I've grown so much being with my partner for 14, 15 years now. And the longer we are together, the more we discover ourselves through them. So it's been amazing. And I also believe that you get what you want. Like if you don't want one, you won't get one. If you want one, you can get one. It's like you kind of will attract and see what you actually want in life. So I'm like, why don't you just want the best instead of wanting little?
And the best for you, because the other thing that I've had since I've met Pierre is all of my friends say, oh, well, where's my Pierre? It's like, well, what work have you done on yourself to be able to then move yourself or elevate yourself into that situation where you can find your perfect match?
That's right.
I found the love of my life because I worked on myself, and I did not accept mediocre as well, and neither did he. And, we don't have to agree on everything, but we're equally yoked is what I like to call it. This is one of my girlfriends who's Seventh-day Adventist said to me when my relationship broke down and I was a single parent with a small child, she said to me, I never thought you were equally yoked. And that doesn't mean you have to be an equal, but what it means is you have to share the common values.
Yes.
And so...
Oh, yeah. Like me and my husband are completely different, like extroverted, introverted. Like there's this yin and yang, but at the same time there's a core value, like family-oriented or respect or some things like that. But, yeah, I totally get you with all that. And so when did you then turn your career around and got back on your feet and your health got better?
Okay, so I retrained as a naturopath later on in my career, and that's when I fell pregnant. I think it was in the water there at the school because a few of us fell pregnant. And I started working as a naturopath on the Central Coast. Had a fabulous couple of days a week working with patients, helping them. And
when you got pregnant, is this your first, your own?
Yeah, I've only my
your
one and only
daughter?
child.
Yes.
Yeah, I had her in 2011. 24/7/11, her birthday is.
Oh my God, how
She
cute.
is 24/7, 11 days a week. So we're talking about getting back on your feet in terms of career. That took a while because I was also experiencing some significant health issues where it looked like the disease that I was diagnosed with, multiple sclerosis, back in 2004, was progressing quite bad because of the stresses that I was undergoing through financial
If someone
settlement.
doesn't really know, or I myself,
Sure.
if you have a very vague knowledge of it, I remember even in primary school, we even raised fundraising for the MS Readathon.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
share with the audience a little bit more about it?
So, multiple sclerosis is a disease of the central nervous system. You have a myelin sheath that protects the brain and the spinal cord, and your body mistakes that for foreign material, and it eats away that myelin sheath, which then can impact you in very different ways. So one person with MS could have very different symptoms to another person. The way it manifested with me initially was double vision, loss of balance, and headaches. And at the time that I was going through my worst and trying to provide for my child and going through a financial settlement, a division of assets and all the rest of it, and all of the other nasty things that go on with separations if you can't be amicable, it really impacted on me. The lesions moved from my brain to my spine. So I had issues with headaches, agonising pain, walking, coordination, a lot of things. And as a single parent going through the joys of financial separation and custody, having a health condition, it can't be too bad, otherwise you lose care of your child. And then so you've got to push through. But my disease was progressing. It was progressing to the point when financial settlement and child arrangements, custody arrangements were sorted out. My health had deteriorated to the point where I was looking like I was heading for a wheelchair. And lucky for me, my neurologist was revisiting a drug and got approval from the government to have 10 patients on a clinical trial. And I was one of them. And it reduced the progression of the disease, and in fact it started reversing a lot of the disability for me. So I was very lucky.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So then once the health was under control, then I could get back into work. So I'd work a 4-hour shift at my local health food store, and I would then spend 4 hours sleeping, recovering from the 4 hours work. That's how I started slowly getting back into it. And then I started practicing again because I couldn't work there for a while, but just started doing some customer service, then did my clinic again, which was great.
Yeah.
And when I was strong enough, I decided that it might be an idea to start dating, because my daughter said to me, "Mummy, you're so pretty. Why don't you have a boyfriend?" I said, "It's not that easy. It's not like you go to the supermarket, you pick a husband to be up off the shelf, read the label and go, no, I don't want that one, put him back."
Yeah. I guess, finding someone to have a fling, it's very easy, but to find someone that you can last for a long time is such a fine art, right? Because you could love someone a bit more, and then you're a bit paranoid. If they love you a bit more, then you're like, too much for me. It has to be so on par with each other. That's why I am very grateful, for the relationship that I have. But at the same time, I'm always also mindful not going, but this is the best that I could have, and always
Absolutely.
considering lowering your standard just because you're fearful of losing what you have as well. Yeah.
Or fearful that if you're truly honest with somebody that they're going to judge you or run away from you. So I was always very upfront that I was a single parent, that it was, my child was very important to me, and that I had MS. So I did tell people. And I had some of my male friends say to me, "Don't tell people you've got MS until they get to know you." But that wasn't me.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet the right person for me. And
you don't want them to fall in love with you, then discover that. Yeah, it's not fair on them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. Knowing where I was, what if that happened again? Would they have the strength to stand by me and be able to care for me if needed? I know that's a very selfish thing, but I would also do that in return because that's the type of person that I am. I'd only expect to receive what I could give in some respects, but we can't give and receive the same. So there's like a balance. Sometimes you give 30%, they give 70, or sometimes you give 80 and they give 20.
Yeah.
So it's like that really nice yin and, well, it's not yin and yang, it's ebb and flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ebb and flow. Love it. And then how did you get into entrepreneurship and be part of the outsourcing business? What was that journey there?
Okay. So my entrepreneurship started with being a naturopath because you are the business. And I really loved helping people. I really enjoyed it. And when I met Pierre, he was starting an outsourcing business. And over the time, because I do have commercial knowledge, having had worked in sales and marketing for other businesses and quite large multinational companies, I understood systems. I understood process, and I understood how to go to market. And I think those are some of the things that I could see that I could add value to in this new venture. And we just started collaborating and got to the point where I gave up my so-called day job to join him and drive the business forward. And since then, we've had a few different brands and grown the business quite nicely.
Yeah. And how does it feel to work now that you've got the love of your life and you also work with the love of your life?
It's funny because people always say, don't you get bored of each other?
Yeah.
We live together, we work together, we go out together. We're literally joined at the hip and love it, love every minute of it. And I think it just comes down to that we share the same common values and nothing's ever a problem. And sometimes you might get a little miffed, but I'm not somebody who holds on to anything, and I've taught him not to as well. So, and it's been 7 years. It hasn't been 60 yet. So maybe ask me in another 30
What do they
years.
say? There's a 7-year itch or something, and if you survive the 7 years, you'll be all right.
I know. Every time my mum says something like that, I feel like she curses me. So this was 7 years, and I said, no, you can't say that. So no, we haven't experienced the 7-year itch. Lucky for me.
Yeah. Look, I think relationship is one of those things where you just hope that the other person cares enough about this relationship to work on it, because it just requires so much work, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be. Like some people do need to put in a lot of work and then other times it's just easy. And I think I've been lucky enough for it just to be easy.
Do you think that because you've met older, when you're a bit older, he's also worked on himself, and so you just come with two full people coming together at an age, so you're not fighting as much, you're a bit, you are who you are?
I think age definitely brings wisdom, and some of that is from your previous relationships, what you don't want to bring into the next relationship. I think it's also really important to really know who you are and your identity as a person and what you're willing to give and take. Because one thing for me that was not negotiable is that I was an independent woman. We met when I was 40. And if I was going to go out without him, he was just going to have to learn to trust me. And trust is a really big thing in a relationship. If you don't have it, then you're always going to feel insecure. So I think we laid some really clear ground rules early on in the relationship of what is and what's not acceptable. And that's going to be different for everybody. But for me, and I believe also for him, I think we've set up that shared value system, what we are willing to negotiate on and what we're not, and we communicate really well. So it's just fun. And I've got to say, I've got the perfect husband. I really do. He's Mr. Right, and he's always right. He really is. I think, I'm happy to admit that.
That's beautiful. Do you guys have any, marriage ritual, tradition that you do that helps to sustain the relationship? Just like in a business, right? Unless you have meeting cadence and ways of communication.
I get fired at least 13 times a day, but I don't take it seriously. He's South African and I'm Australian, so I always say to him, it's not your fault English is not your first language. And so he's like, no, my English is my first language. So we have some cultural differences there because of just the way that the sentence is structured between us, Aussie English and South African English, that sometimes we passionately argue towards the same direction. So that's one thing that I find quite amusing. And the other thing that we do to keep the love alive, so to say, is we often celebrate on the 5th of every month, because we first met we first went out on our first date on the 5th of April. So the 5th of every month we celebrate as a monthly
beautiful.
Anniversary, which is, I know, it's almost like counting your baby's first year.
Yeah. 6 months old. That's beautiful.
So it's a bit funny. And when he first proposed to me, it was during COVID, and I just wanted to get married. I hadn't been married before. I really wanted to get married. I really wanted to marry the man of my dreams. And 12 months had passed. My friends had got married, who got engaged after us, and I was a bit miffed, and I'm like, that's it. I want to get married. Yeah. You know it's bad luck if you wait more than 12 months, so you're going to have to marry me 12 times. And he said, is that a thing? I'm like, yes. That's so not a thing. He said, okay, I'll marry you 13 times then. So it's been twice. He surprise married me in Thailand.
Oh, you married twice already?
Well, the first one wasn't, the
a proper one because of COVID.
The certificate came back Pierre and Karen. So I think he was trying to pull a Swiftie on me. I don't know. And then the second time we did with all the family.
He surprised you?
Not the second time.
Okay.
No, the first time. My mum begged me not to elope with him.
Yes.
But I did because, what can I do? I was on this beautiful beach in Thailand. I've got the man of my dreams standing in front of me in this beautiful scene. Do you trust me? We're getting married right now.
Oh, my God.
Tears, laughing.
Yeah. And then how
Definitely.
did you guys integrate your kids together? Like, what was any challenges, any tips around that?
So when we met, my daughter was 7 years old, and she's very much mother's girl. So she still struggles a little bit sharing and being an only child. I was very fortunate. Pierre's children, he's got 4 of them, were very welcoming to me. His youngest was 15 at the time. So I feel like that COVID was a blessing to our family because it allowed the kids to be out of school and be with us every second week. So we really got to bond as a family. And that was, we just moved in together. It was the second round of COVID, I think, shut us down. And it was the best time that we had. We had these games that we'd play as a family. We'd get the mattress, a mattress and slide it down the stairs. You remember when you're kids and use a bodyboard or something like that? Yeah. We'd find all these fun little things to do. So it was a lot of fun.
And, having met you, I felt like you're so useful. Like, what's your approach to life? What's your attitude towards life? I feel like you're just so young at heart, like you were playing some sliding thing. Do you feel your age at all?
No, absolutely not. It's really mean that the mirror tells me otherwise. But I got to the point where I say, I'm only 40. So when people ask me how old I am, I'm like, I'm 40. But I was born in 1979. You do the math.
Yeah, you're my husband. No, you're 50... No, not even 40-something. You're only 40-something.
47.
Yeah, 47.
Yeah,
Because my husband's 1976, so I knew it was somewhere around there.
My husband's 13 years older than me, so he's 45 perpetually. But we both feel 20 on the inside. Pierre's kids are all of age, and we've been out and out clubbing with them. And they just like hanging out with us, maybe because we pay for the bar bill.
Yeah. Definitely. If you were to look back at your life now, like, I guess if you had to segment, me back in my early first 2 decades, I'm like this, or this is the Kaz there, and then between there and 30-something before you marry, like, describe yourself there.
Okay, so in the first 2 decades, I mean, you're learning who you are, you're developing confidence. And then you set off on your way, you find your independence, you move out of home. Well, back then you did. And I was very career driven, I was very focused. And, the second 20 years was more about establishing, a career, around the disability, having family, and navigating the challenges of life. And now from 40 onwards is about reinventing myself, definitely trying to create a legacy for the family to be able to carry on if that's what they choose to do. But, really what we're looking at creating is legacy wealth and setting up the future generation.
So when you're saying legacy wealth, you're thinking about passing on the business to them if they wanted to. Because I always wrestle with the fact that, because my parents didn't have much, I worked hard and it helped me to build my own character, my own resilience, and I get to carry those skills with me. But often if we give our kids everything, then they will just go, well, I don't have to work. What's the point? We already got money. And so I always have to try to pretend that we don't have any and, be very strategic about pushing them. You have to kind of play the game a little bit. What's your approach with your kids now?
I don't believe in giving pocket money for household chores. So Pierre's had a very different situation because his children were, young adults when I first met them. So there's no parenting there with them. They've got two parents that, have instilled some great values in them. My focus is on how do I bring up my daughter in a way where she values money. And for me, I don't believe that you should pay for household chores because I'm teaching you a life skill and you're going to have to do that anyway. So if you want to do other things, then you get to contribute to the family. It's a hard one because you want to give your children opportunities that you never had as well. And I don't really believe that you can spoil children. I think you can teach them bad habits or it's such a difficult one and it's so personal for each person. So I think if your children are really well behaved and you take them on amazing holidays and they have nice gifts for their birthday, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think they understand what being fortunate is, and especially if you take them to third world countries, they can see how fortunate they are as well.
Tell me more about that. Do you intentionally take them to third world and expose them to that? And
Yeah, well, we had to go back to South Africa, so I had the opportunity and the pleasure of meeting Pierre's family and his mother. And, we had a wonderful trip. It really solidified the family unit and great memories that everybody talks about to this day. And then they did see the townships there and how dangerous it can potentially be. And they are grateful that they've got opportunities. So I think our kids have got a lot of privileges. They haven't really had to struggle too hard, but they've also had their own struggles as well, coming from broken families. So each child's different as well. I've only got one, so I only know how to, I kind of know how to parent that one. It's such an individual thing. But I do think kids need to struggle to learn. I think that's the only way we learn. What do they say? We only experience growth outside our comfort zone. We make it too comfortable for them, they'll never leave home.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Even though it's very comfortable having them, actually. I love sleeping with my kids. It's so cute. Just want to keep them forever. If someone's watching and they're like, okay, I want to make a lot of money one day, I want to be a successful woman, and I want to find the man of my dreams, I guess what would you say their first steps are in those two areas? More money and love.
I guess, from my background as well, because I developed a lot of wealth in my 20s, being so career focused and being well enough to do so, and investing wisely with my head and not with my heart. And then, carrying on from there, it actually saved me. Money isn't important to everybody, but for the ones that it is important to, I'd say figure out what your core values are. So I know with me, wealth is a really important core value for me because then everything else stems from that. So, they say money can't buy you happiness. It sure can. It really can. So
at least it gives you choices.
A lot of choices.
Yeah.
Well, it buys you out of an unhappy situation if you are potentially in that. If you don't have money and you want to be able to create wealth, I think you need to be really dedicated and you need to be willing to sacrifice things. And what we see in today's society is we're a now generation. We want that shiny, shiny new object, and we're not willing to put money aside. So even if it's just a little bit of money that you can put aside and develop good saving habits for your children so they have those opportunities, that's great. Not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. It's hard work. People don't tell you that. People will look at you or me and they'll say, oh, they're so lucky. No, we worked hard. We worked really hard to get where we are. Some people get lucky. Some things just fall in their lap, but you've got to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And, you know, to find love again, I think you really need to know who you are. So you find the right love and you don't end up in that toxic cycle. So I know some people who are in DV relationships tend to fall in the same cycle over and over and over again. You know, really knowing who you are, what you want, and breaking those cycles. Because I remember when somebody would say something nice to me, I'd be like, oh, they like me. Oh. You know, that it gives you a dopamine hit, but it's not real. I was told by a lady who was brought up by two profoundly deaf parents, and this is the best advice that I got after the 13-year separation, was don't believe what people tell you. She said, I was brought up by two profoundly deaf parents and all I see is actions. I don't hear words. I see actions. And that was one of the best bit of dating advice that I got.
I love that. It always reminds me of kind of like, who are you listening the information from? Do they have the result that you're after? Often you can hear people go, yeah, you should do this and that, but do they have the result that you're after, you know? And so I really love that that quote there. What's in the future for Kaz, and what do you see for yourself, your family? I guess, you know, I know you love manifesting and praying for goodness to come. What's your vision in life?
Oh, look, I just want really healthy, happy family. Would love to explore international markets more and relocate and live over in the US. So that is on the vision board.
Interesting.
You know, we have clients over there, so we are working towards that. I think the biggest success that I'll be measured by at the end of it all is the family, and are they happy? Are they set up? Are they confident in who they are? Have they got good, healthy, strong relationships? And, you know, do I have a good, healthy, strong relationship with them? And then if we've got some, you know, wealth to share, that's great. Or if not, let's spend it all and experience it. You know, I think sometimes we get so caught up in, you know, generating legacy wealth that we forget to enjoy holidays and family time together.
Oh, totally. I put all that in my new book, 360 Degree Success, actually, because I see so many entrepreneurs just chasing more, the bigger business, and it never ends. It's an addictive game.
Stress is very addictive as well, you know, and one thing I take away from Pierre is he's the master outsourcer, and I went from being a people pleaser to now being an outsourcer and a boss lady. You know, I used to associate boss with, you know, hierarchy and, you know,
telling
getting
people
into trouble,
what to do.
telling people what to do. Exactly. Whereas I see that more so as leadership now, and how to grow your team to make them the best versions of themselves, to be able to support you in achieving the vision for the future that provides all of these joys in life for, you know, our team, for our clients, help them to achieve their vision and provide for their families.
That's
so
right.
That's
I love it too, because often sometimes people try to do everything themselves, do the cleaning themselves, doing everything themselves, worrying that they're wasting money. But I'm like, you didn't throw money in the bin. You actually gave someone a chance to work, and they probably even do a better job than you, while you get to free up your time. So
to spend with your family or doing the things you love. And it's just, you know, I think I was brought up with money is a dirty word. And I had to reframe that as it's just an exchange of energy. And that's something that's really held. But definitely outsourcing, the best thing I ever did was get a house cleaner. Best thing.
Yes, me too. Big advocate of that.
And it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work. I'm so grateful for my incredible team that come in. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kaz. Where do people connect with you? Where do you hang out online?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn. You can find me, Karen Thierry. So, and I try not to do too much social media. I'm on Instagram as well, Kaz Thierry, Thierry.
Actually, it's funny. I was just asking her about the name, and she's like, "I'm trying to move away from Karen because
Oh, okay. This is the way I introduce myself. Hi, and everybody's gone. They cringe. Hi, my name's Karen. But you can call me Kaz because no one likes a Karen.
And I was saying you definitely don't look like a Karen because you are so bright and so lovely, and you just bring the energy. So thank you so much for this conversation. I think a lot of women would feel inspired to know that it doesn't matter if you may be going through some illness, or you've got a child and you don't know how to get over a relationship, but you definitely have inspired me and inspire others as well. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Lynn. Bye.